These are the three kind of things I want us to go over today when it talks about total depravity. Original sin, the actual doctrine of total depravity, and then universal guilt. Sorry, that's universal. And I'm getting this from Ligonier. Ligonier is the ministry of a person named R.C. Sproul, a very good teacher. So I tried to get this from him. Okay, we'll come back to all of these. This is it. Original sin. You don't have to write the whole definition down. Probably the most important thing is this one right here. The doctrine of original sin refers to the results of the first sin of Adam, spreading sin to the entire human race and death to all humanity. So, people ask well, why is it fair that I'm getting punished for Adam's sin? Well, unfortunately, that's the way it works. Because Adam sinned, his guilt is incurred on all of humanity. It does spread down. It does kind of cover all of humanity in that sense. The first sin of Adam spreads to the entire human race, and death is given to all of humanity because of that. And then I went on to define sin right here, and that's what we have when we played that game. The reason why you need to accept the doctrine of original sin, because if you don't accept that Adam is the first human, you cannot also accept that Jesus is also the first God, firstborn of creation. In the same way that Jesus' blood covers all of us, you have to also say, well, yeah, Adam's sin also covered and affected all of us as well. Hey, Helen. This is Helen, guys. It's Helen. All right, but that's what original sin is. Original sin means that, we believe that Adam's sin and death gets spread to all of us. Guilt is incurred upon all of us. This is a verse where it says it. Romans 5:12. So very, very clear. Therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned. I don't have the next part of the verse, but it basically says, so Jesus' blood will also cover everybody if you believe in him. Forgiveness comes through Jesus. So sin comes from Adam, forgiveness comes through Jesus. And you have to get both of those things. You don't have to write the whole verse down. The reference is fine for you to get the point. Romans 5:12. Okay, here's total depravity. So this is the bulk, the meat of the lesson. Sin affects the whole person. The underlined portions are the things that you need to get the most. Okay, so the doctrine of total depravity does not mean that all humankind is as evil as it possibly could be. So a lot of times people will say I've never murdered anybody. I've never robbed a bank. I am not totally depraved. Well, that's not what the doctrine means. The doctrine just means that sin affects the whole person. So in your heart, you are actually radically, totally corrupted in that sense. You might not act on it, but your heart is unable to choose God. That's what it boils down to. Sin affects the whole person. We are born corrupted, poisoned, and polluted by sin. So you have these word pictures of it affecting your entire being, your entire heart being affected by it. Our minds are darkened, and we cannot see or understand the truth. Our hearts are defiled so that they do not love the truth. We love what we should hate, and we hate what we should love. Our wills are in bondage to sin, and we cannot believe the gospel in and of themselves. We sin because we are sinners and because we have a sin nature. So our entire being, our entire heart, our entire mind is so corrupted by sin, is so affected by our depravity that I cannot choose God even if I can't even say that. I just cannot choose God because I don't want to. That's the nature of our fallen human beings. People will say, I'm a good person. Well, the Bible says you're not even good enough to want to choose God unless God would change your heart to do so. You can't do it. This is it. You're slave. You're a slave to your sin. Total depravity. You're stuck. You cannot come out of that yourselves. I will relate this to Jesus at the end, but we have to start here first. Here's the verse, and this is good. Romans 3:10-12. As it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands. No one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. It's a very extreme view right? It's crazy that the Bible actually says no one, right? Whenever I get mad, I'm like, dude, you always do this. Well, the answer is like, I don't always do that. Why are you being so extreme, right? Well, the Bible does say, no, it is really that extreme. When it comes to us and God, we will not choose him. We will not choose him unless he changes our hearts to do so. And this is the last thing we need to define: universal guilt. This means that apart from Jesus, every person in every place in every generation has sinned. Because of sin, a death sentence hangs over the entire human race. So Adam's sin affects all of us, and all of us are therefore guilty. Yes, we are guilty of Adam's initial sin, but I hopefully made the point that, well, we are all guilty of our own sin too. We're all guilty of our own sin too. We have to own up to the fact that we're sinners because we're part of Adam's family, the human race, but we also have to own up to the fact that we're sinners because we sin personally as well. Universal guilt. 2 verses for that. Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. You know that verse. And then one more reference for you. Romans 6:23. And the wages of sin is death. The wages of sin, meaning you earned it. You earned death. You worked using your sin nature, and you earned death because of your sin. Those are fine distinctions, okay? The fact that, well, you're guilty just by being human, but you're also guilty because you earned death, because you are a sinner. You have to make those distinctions. This is just a quote. You don't have to write this down. Tony Reinke, he does a good job of putting this into God's perspective and how this does not help us be happy. Humans that want to be happy will understand the doctrine of total depravity because you'll see that joy is found in God. That's kind of the whole thing that these guys are about. We can summarize total depravity not just as badness, but as blindness to beauty and deadness to joy, meaning we don't even want God. We don't even want to see him. Our root problem is not that we break God's commands. Our problem is that we have no interest in God. Ignoring divine beauty is the essence of total depravity. It's what makes the depravity so holistic. We cannot begin to imagine how any real sense of pleasure or joy can be found in our Creator. To us sinners, God is only a boring obstacle to our joy. This dynamic is what makes our depravity total, holistic. I think that's probably how I would want you to see that. Sin is a holistic endeavor. Okay, now this is kind of leftover from last year because I feel like this is important. When I talk about total depravity, I like to go to Ephesians. Okay, so this is me, Aaron, talking now, not from R.C. Sproul and Ligonier, but this is the verse that helped me to understand it the most. Ephesians, you were dead in the trespasses and sins in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now in work at the sons of disobedience. So that word dead, the word dead is the most important word, I think, there, because it shows that, you're not going to choose God. You cannot choose God. You're dead. There's no chance for you to come out of the pit of your sin. You cannot climb out of it. You can't jump out of it. God needs to reach in and pull you out of your sin. That's what total depravity means. You're dead. You cannot do anything to save yourself or to get out of that sin pit. The Bible uses a bunch of other words to describe total depravity. And another way to say this, and this is from R.C. Sproul, is radical corruption. Radical corruption meaning the sin inside of you, it affects you 100% all the way. That's what it means, radical, totally, fully, and corrupt, meaning the sin is just totally perverse and bad. The Bible uses these terms, dead, which I already showed you, and then in other verses that I didn't put the references, but you know where these verses are. The Bible describes us as blind and deaf, meaning we can't see God, we can't hear his voice. We are stiff-necked, meaning we're stubborn. We're not going to turn to God. The Bible also describes us as hardened of heart, having hearts of stone. And the only way that we will soften our hearts is if God gives us a new heart of flesh. That's what it means. Or God breaks our heart of stone and he gives us a heart of flesh. So you'll see that this is all over the Bible. This is not something that man made up, but it's in the Bible. It shows that we are in desperate need of God to save us. God is totally sovereign over our salvation. This is the extent of our sin. And the way that we come out of it is to believe in Jesus. The way that we come out of this thing is through Jesus. And the way that we believe in Jesus is because God changes our heart. Okay, God is the one who raises us up from the dead. God is the one that unblinds our eyes. God is the one that unclogs our ears. God is the one that pulls us, drags us despite our stubbornness. God is the one that gives us new hearts so that we can do this. Even before somebody can admit they're a sinner, God needs to have made that change in that person's heart. Admit you're a sinner. You believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and that's not you. That's God enabling you to do that. And then God enables you to confess him as a resurrected king over your life. Whenever we call people to salvation, when we say, hey, believe the gospel, all we're doing is we're just asking them to respond to a change that God has hopefully already started inside of them. I cannot persuade you to become a Christian. I cannot manipulate you or try to prove to you that Christianity is real. The real work of salvation, the real work is that God would change people's hearts. It's not on us. And it's freeing in that way because that's what prayer is, right? Prayer is admitting, God, I can't do anything. I need you to do this. And that comes with your friends and family that aren't saved. You need God to do it. That's why we pray.